Breaking news. The British government is spiraling into absolute chaos. Just moments ago, Prime Minister Keir Starmer appeared live on national television, and what followed sent shockwaves through Westminster and across the entire country. Senior sources inside Downing Street are now confirming that resignation documents are actively being drafted. This is no longer rumor or political theater. This is unfolding in real time, and what comes next is set to permanently reshape British politics. The disclosures made during that broadcast were so explosive, so deeply damaging, that there is now virtually no route back for Starmer. Members of his own party are openly distancing themselves. Cabinet ministers are quietly stepping aside, and the British public is demanding immediate answers. What you are about to hear is staggering, because information hidden from the public for months has finally emerged, and the reality is far worse than anyone anticipated. The emergency interview began precisely at 8 p.m., and from the very first moment, something felt profoundly wrong. Starmer walked onto the set looking exhausted, like a man who had not slept in days. His face was pale, his hands trembled, and his voice cracked as he began to speak. This was not the composed prime minister seen at routine press briefings. This was a man who knew his political clock was running out. The interviewer, a veteran journalist known for relentless questioning, wasted no time. He went straight to the allegations, and that was the moment everything started to unravel. Just hours before the broadcast, documents had been leaked. Documents revealing a sustained pattern of deception stretching back months, possibly even years. Undisclosed financial arrangements, meetings deliberately kept off official records, and private commitments made to powerful figures behind closed doors. Commitments that directly contradicted everything Starmer had been telling the British public. The first major bombshell came when the interviewer produced printed email exchanges between Starmer's office and several major corporate donors. These were not routine political donations. These were multi-million-pound transactions, each carrying expectations in return. The emails made it clear that policies affecting millions of working families were being shaped by those donors. Healthcare reforms promoted as support for the NHS were, in reality, designed to benefit private healthcare firms that had heavily funded Labour's campaign. Infrastructure projects sold as job creation initiatives were quietly steered toward contractors with personal connections to senior Labour officials. This was corruption at the highest level, operating in plain sight, and yet this was only the beginning. The second revelation landed even harder. Phone records obtained through Freedom of Information requests showed that Starmer had maintained regular contact with foreign government officials, conversations that were never reported to Parliament as legally required. These were discussions with representatives of regimes known for troubling human rights records, negotiations that carried serious implications for Britain's sovereignty and national security. When confronted with those records, Starmer faltered. He stumbled through vague explanations, dismissing them as routine diplomatic exchanges. But the evidence told a far darker story. These calls took place late at night. They stretched on for hours, and they were deliberately concealed from public oversight. The studio audience erupted. Shouts filled the room. People stood, pointing at the screen. The anger was raw and unmistakable. Ordinary citizens were finally grasping the scale of what had been done. They had voted for reform. They had believed promises to clean up politics and put working people first. Now they were watching those promises collapse in real time. A nurse from Manchester stood up, tears streaming down her face, and asked Starmer how he could face healthcare workers after what he had done. The silence that followed was crushing. Starmer looked down at his notes, unable to answer. Then came the final blow. A whistleblower from inside Number 10, someone who had worked closely with Starmer for years, stepped forward with audio recordings, actual recordings of private meetings. In them, Starmer and his closest advisors discussed manipulating public opinion, burying negative stories, and attacking critics. This was not the public figure voters knew. This was a cold, calculating operator, treating voters as statistics to be managed. In the recordings, he dismissed union concerns, mocked grassroots members, and most damning of all, openly admitted that certain policies would harm working-class families, but that the political benefits were worth the cost. When those clips aired live, the reaction was immediate. Social media exploded. Hashtags demanding Starmer's resignation surged worldwide. Independent forensic experts quickly confirmed the recordings were authentic. Opposition parties moved fast. Emergency debates were called. Demands for Starmer to face Parliament intensified. The Liberal Democrats declared that any leader with integrity left would resign immediately. Inside Labour, the dam broke. Backbench MPs began issuing public statements calling for his removal. Some spoke cautiously. Others were brutally direct, stating that Starmer had betrayed the party's core values and lost the moral authority to govern. Behind closed doors, emergency meetings were called at Downing Street. Ministers arrived through back entrances to avoid the media storm outside. Inside, panic ruled. Some argued for unity. Others demanded to know what revelations were still coming and whether Starmer would step aside or need to be forced out. Because this crisis no longer threatens just one man. Leaked documents implicate senior labor figures across government, the Chancellor, the Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary. This is no longer a leadership scandal. It is the potential collapse of an entire government, as Britain faces critical votes, international obligations, and mounting economic pressure. The government stands frozen, paralyzed by a crisis that deepens with every hour. The nation is watching. The world is watching.